In exercise 9, we have quite a lot of work to do because we're going to be practicing looking up information using lookup functions and also making decisions using logical functions. So the first part of this exercise, we're going to practice using Vlookup. So on the test scores worksheet, I want you to format the data as a table. And I'd like you to give that table a name of test scores. I'd then like you to create a Vlookup formula to look up the physics, biology and chemistry test scores for the students selected in cell M4. And I'd like you to test that that formula is working by selecting different students from the data validation drop-down list in cell M4. So let's have a quick look at that. If we jump across to the test scores worksheet, this is our table of data that we need to put into a table and name. And then over here, this is where we want to construct our Vlookup formula using the information in cell M3. And in the second part of this exercise, on the student grades worksheet, again, I'd like you to use Vlookup to find the grade for each student's average score for science. Once you've done that, I'd like you to copy the formula down for all students and notice if you get any errors in the cells. If you do, I'd like you to modify the formula so that instead of an error, the formula returns the text fail. So let's jump across to student grades. Here we have a table that shows the low end and the high end and the grade that's assigned to this range. In the table below, we can see our students, the marks they scored for each of these subjects, and then their average score. And based on their average score, I want to work out what grade they should receive. And for that, we're using Vlookup again. Once we've done that, it's time to move on to logical decisions. So on the Christmas party worksheet, I'd like you to use a formula to calculate which venue meets all required conditions. So the first thing I'd like you to do here is in column G, I'd like you to work out which of these venues can accommodate 400 or more people. And I'd like a result of yes if they can and no if they can't. And then in column H, I'd like you to work out which venues can accommodate more than 400 people and have a price of less than $4,000. And again, we want a yes for a true result and no for a false result. And what you should find is that once you've performed both of these calculations, there is one venue that matches all of the criteria. And I'd like you to enter the venue name into cell G22. And then finally, on the order number worksheet, I'd like you to practice using text functions to tidy up the customer data table. So in the helper column in column D, I'd like you to output all of the names of the customers, but I want you to tidy them up so that they have no erroneous spaces and are also all in proper case. And then once you've tidied them up in this helper column, I'd like you to use Paste Special to paste the values over the top and throw away the underlying formulas. Next, I'd like you to use Flash Fill to separate the first name and the last name of each customer. And then finally, in column G, I'd like you to use text functions to return the last 4 digits of the order number. So a lot of different things to do in this exercise. If you'd like to see my answer, then please keep watching. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to create ourselves a table. Now I'm going to use the shortcut key, Control T, and I'm going to give this table a name of test scores and hit enter. Now what we need to do is construct a Vlookup formula and return the results for whatever student we have selected in cell M3. So let's type equals Vlookup, press the tab key. Our lookup value is whatever we have in cell M3. Our table array is this table of data over here. Now because we've named it, we can just type in the name of the table. Next, we need to specify which column we want to return. So I want to return the physics test score, which is column number 2. And I want to do an exact match of the student name in the table. Close the bracket, hit enter. So the score for Alice for physics is 23, and that is correct. Let's do the same for biology. Lookup value, M3, table array is test scores. column index number. This time we want biology, which is column number 3. And we want to do an exact match, which is false or a 0 on the end. Close the bracket. And the final one here is just VLOOKUP, lookup value M3. We're searching for it in the test scores table. And this time we want to return column number 4, and we want to do an exact match. And hit enter. Let's just check to make sure this is working by selecting other students from this drop-down. So Anthony Hawkins, here he is. Physics is 94, biology is 21, and chemistry is 100. So that looks to be working perfectly. Now the next part of this exercise is that we want to return the grade based on the student's average test score. So once again, we're going to use VLOOKUP to do this. Our lookup value is going to be the average score, E13. Our table array is going to be this table of data. Now I'm going to copy this formula down. I don't want this table range to move, so I'm going to lock by pressing F4, comma, column index number. Well, I'm looking for the grade, which is column number 3. And this time I'm doing an approximate match because the average is going to fall somewhere within that range between low end and high end. So we want a true argument on the end here. Hit enter, and then I can drag this formula down. Now the next part of the exercise was to check to see if we have any errors when we do this. And if so, we want to correct them. Now I can see that I have an NA error in here. So basically what I want to replace this with is the word fail, which basically means if their average score is lower than 46, they're basically going to have failed, which is very, very sad. So let's go up and edit our formula and simply wrap this in if NA. And our value is going to be generated by the VLOOKUP function. So if it finds an NA, we want it to say fail. Let's just add that on the end, hit enter, and then when we recopy this down, that NA is replaced with the word fail. Next, we want to use logical functions to work out which venue is going to suit all of our requirements. So the first thing we need to work out here in column G is which of the venues in the table have the ability to hold more than 400 people. So what we're going to say here is equals if. So if B4 is greater than or equal to 400, if that's true, then yes, it suits our needs. If it's false, then no, it doesn't. Hit enter, and we can then double click to copy this formula down. Now in column H, we have two pieces of criteria. So for this, we need to do an if, but we also need to do an and. Now our first logical test is pretty much the same as what we just did. If B4 is greater than or equal to 400, but we also have a second piece of criteria, and that is if the price is less than 4,000. So our second logical test is if the price is less than 4,000. Let's close off our and. So if both of those are true, we want to output a result of yes. If they're not, we want a result of no. Let's close off our formula, hit enter, and then we can copy down. And what this should leave us with is just one result. And I can see it here. It's the only one which has yes. It's the only one which meets both of these pieces of criteria. So our chosen venue, and I'm just going to link to the cell, is Summertime House. Now the final part of this exercise was just practicing using text functions to clean data. So in the helper column, I asked you to clean up the customer names by removing erroneous spaces and changing it to proper case. So we're going to combine both of these functions. We're going to do trim and proper, and we're going to trim this text just here. And we need to close off both the trim and the proper function. Hit enter, and then we can drag that down. I then asked you to use flash fill to separate the first name and the last name of all of these customers. So all you need to do here is type in the first one, Control Enter, up to the Data tab and click Flash Fill. Alternatively, you can type in the first one, so McCoy in this case, Control Enter. I'm going to select all the cells and Control E to flash fill down. And then finally, I asked you to separate off the last 4 characters of this order number. So for this, we're working from the right-hand side, so we're going to use the right command. We want to use the text in cell B3, and the number of characters we want to extract from the right-hand side is 4. Close the bracket, hit enter, and then we can double-click to copy down.